The Six Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam and I want to make self-growth normal because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If that's something you're interested in, because it's not easy to do alone, then make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Imagine living life with low self-esteem. Imagine living life with high self-esteem. Imagine filming videos outside and you are sweating like crazy, but it's also like such a nice day that it's kind of hard to want to do it inside. It's weird. It's a weird time. Maybe you've done both or all three. At the end of this video, I'll say that I certainly have. This is a book about the 6 pillars of self-esteem, and you build them and they hold each other up, which structurally speaking doesn't really make that much sense because they're not together. I mean, they're held together by a beam of some sort. Maybe it depends on what kind of material you're using, but wow, I'm getting really carried away with this. Let me try that again. This book is about the 6 pillars of self-esteem. The price of caring about them greatly is high. Maybe not that high, but the reward is great. You know, they're one big happy family. There's a dad and a mom and 3 sons and a daughter, and the dad and mom separate after a number of years, and one of the sons is less emotionally scarred by it than he suspected he would be, and a decade later, even with a girlfriend, he becomes this hermit who spends his free time reviewing $10 audio programs. As you can see, I definitely needed to check out a book like this one. This book answers 4 questions. What is self-esteem? Why is it important? What can we do to raise the level of it for ourselves? And how do others influence it? For the record, this is just about the book. This is my thoughts on the book. This is my thoughts on, the different chapters and, what the author talks about, things I liked about the book, things I didn't like about the book, things that surprised me, things that didn't surprise me. The actual 6 pillars, I'm going to make a separate video about those. Might I add, this guy's writing style, it kind of sounded like Jordan Peterson's, but with contractions. Which isn't the best thing, but it's not a bad thing. Self-esteem is confidence in one's own worth or abilities and self-respect. Healthy self-esteem correlates with relationality, realism, intuition, creativity, independence, a lot of things, flexibility, ability to manage change. What's the difference between those two? Willingness to admit and correct what you've done wrong, goodness, and cooperation. Poor self-esteem correlates with irrationality, blindness to reality, rigidity, what Nassim Taleb would probably call fragility, fear of new things, inappropriate conformity, or rebelliousness, defensiveness, over-compliant or over-controlling behavior, and fear of hostility toward other people. A lot of this, it sounds a bit to me like, human nature 101. The higher our self-esteems, the more equipped we are to cope with problems that come up in our personal and professional lives. We've successfully reached a time in history when self-esteem is, it's an economic need now. It's not just a psychological one. And how about that? Some food for thought, if you will. He said that now we live in a global society characterized by rapid change, accelerated technological breakthroughs, and an unprecedented level of competitiveness. And guess what this requires multiple aspects of? High self-esteem. Okay, I think I'm gonna try to go inside because it is ridiculously hot out here and I think that I might be melting. So that's something. Now, cat out of the bag, if you will. The thing I noticed about this book, it's a thick with 2 C's and a strawberry lollipop dichotomy between high and low self-esteem. What each one is and how they're different from each other. It reminded me a little bit of Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. The differences between the growth and the fixed mindsets. The whole book is a wheel around which the axles of the mindsets turn. High self-esteem and low self-esteem, the pros of the former and the cons of the latter. And this guy's writing style, if you've ever checked out Jordan Peterson's, and you can see where I'm coming from, this is not really that modern at all. Which is odd because I thought listening to it that this book was written in like the early 70s or something, maybe earlier. Like he didn't mention the 50s and 60s in the intro. I thought it was like the 20s or 30s. You know when it was originally published? 1994. This does not sound like 1994. Which, might I add, it's not a problem for everyone. Does this make the book indigestible? No. Does being well-spoken make you sound like a buffoon? Depends on what you're saying. This guy is touching upon an important subject using what doesn't sound like the most outdated information out there. And it's coming from a psychotherapist. And that's a field that moves pretty fast. At least I'm under the impression it does. Maybe not as fast as internet software and medicine, but is it riddled with religious or political philosophy? No. Is that a good thing? Maybe. Probably because it's maybe the most well-known book out there about the sole subject of self-esteem. This book gets kind of personal at points. More personal than you'd expect. And I do like that, aside from the many examples that add this this layer of relatability to it. I think of my first marriage when I was 22 years old. I think of all the signs I made a mistake, the numerous conflicts in between us, the incompatibilities in some of our values, the ways in which at the core we are not each other's type. Why then did I proceed? Because of our shared commitment to then certain ideals, because of sexual attraction, because I wanted to have a woman in my life, because she was the first person from whom I didn't feel alienated and didn't have confidence that another would come along, because I imagined that marriage would solve all the problems between us. If I had somehow thought to say to myself, if you were to bring a higher level of consciousness to your relationship with Barbara steadily, day after day, what do you suppose might happen? I have to wonder what I might have been led to come to grips with. By the way, he has writing and speaking exercises at the end of every chapter. I've tried varieties of them in the past and it does work. And what's really helpful about them is that by doing them, you are practicing self-awareness enough, but not enough that you're obsessed, kind of self-obsessed to an unhealthy degree. It's interesting. Might I add, I did look this guy up. He died in 2014 and he was married 4 times during his life. When he speaks about his own relationships, it's quite evident that he's thought quite a bit about what went wrong during them. Now, the 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene, or the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, or the 12 Rules of Life by Jordan Peterson, or the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, these books are with examples of their respected rules, habits, strategies, agreements, etc. This book, it's a little bit different. I have to admit, the author, as it's worth noting, he kept things brief by not giving out too many examples, and this is a little strange to me because half the examples I just gave of books like that, they came out around the time of or earlier than this one's publishing. So it can't have to do with what time period this book was written. Of course, he goes over certain behaviors in parenting and teaching that both affect positively and negatively a child's self-esteem growing up. He also discusses where it ties into the workplace, and there's this lovely outro about how it ties into like the roots of America's history and where we're going now, and I think he did a pretty fair job at keeping things objective and not politicizing them. Is that the right word? I don't remember if it's politicize or polititize. I think it's politicize. Politicize sounds cooler. The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem is a bottom line introduction to self-actualization. When I went to a psych hospital to be evaluated when I was 17 for depression and suicidal thoughts, a counselor once told me, and all the other kids that were there, that we're there to learn self-actualization. And I strongly bet that if you looked in his personal library, to this day, you'd probably find 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem in there, and it's understandable why. Quotes. The most disastrous relationships are between those that think poorly of themselves. Whoever's successful in this world runs the risk of being a target. The tragedy of many people's lives is that they look for self-esteem in every direction but within, so they fail in their search. It is realistic to love ourselves while despising who we see in the mirror. There is perhaps nothing more important about children than that they need to make sense out of their experience. Direction 1. The author says that this book is addressed to everyone who wants to actively participate in their evolution, as well as to psychologists, parents, and teachers, and those responsible for the cultures of their organizations. I personally recommend it to anyone who has trouble living with him or herself, because you read or listen to it and it's quite clearly about how to handle consistent thoughts of self-doubt, self-loathing, regret, being too hard on yourself over what you haven't accomplished, and the like. It's a whole package. It truly is. Direction 2. If you like this book, you might like the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, the 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. I didn't really like 12 Rules for Life by myself. A lot of people did, and they don't understand why I don't. I just found it a little bit disjointed, and I found that it would have been more fitting to call it 12 Rules for Christian Life, or 12 Christian Rules for Life. So if you check out that book and you feel the same way, which chances are you probably won't, because I mean, it's a lot of people versus me here if we're looking at apples to oranges. Is that the right saying for this context? I don't know. But if, for whatever reason, that book isn't your thing, I was actually very impressed with his book 12 More Rules for Life. I found it much more well-rounded. The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video, if you want to check those out too. If you guys buy anything through the links in the description, then I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because I don't get why people watch this far in my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I'll see you then.